God can do so much more with less. He can do so much more with less. I think sometimes it's so easy for us to get discouraged and thinking that, we have so little. And what is it that God can do to bless us or to help us? This is another one of those moments where I don't know what God is doing, because I've never in my life gone live back to back to back. I think this is my third or so day going live. And again, I'm trying to have lunch. And I don't know, the Spirit is just moving in me, and God is just putting in my heart, you need to walk in obedience and do what I'm telling you to do. So I asked him just before going live, what is it that you want to put in my heart, that you're putting in my heart to talk about? And what he's placing in my heart is, so many people think they have so little, and they don't think that they can do much with it. But God has the ability to do so much more with less. So much more with less. I think sometimes we easily trick ourselves or get fooled into thinking that we can't go after this dream or this goal, or we can't make it, because we don't see with the little bit that we have what God is able to do. But I just want to encourage you all, he can do so much more with less. This is not just fluff talking. I have to realize not everyone knows my backdrop. Many of you do if you followed my podcast, Unlocking Greatness Podcast with Zenja Glass, or if you've read my book, Necessary, then you definitely know my story. But let's just say this. I've had a tremendous amount of ups and downs in life. And what's so interesting is in the moments of in the downs, when things seem the worst, when things seem so dire, and I don't know how I'm going to make it, or what's going to happen, in my family or with my business or whatever it is. And it's amazing how God just comes in and works it out. So I just want to read a little bit to you all. I see some people coming in here. I'm still getting to know this platform. I see some waving symbols. Okay, so I didn't even know we can wave at each other. That's cool. So for those who are just joining, I'm talking about God can do so much more with less. And I'm just going to talk. I keep saying I'm going to talk for a few minutes on it, and I end up talking for 30 minutes. But I'm really, really going to try my best to keep this as just a short little, 5-10 minute conversation, if it's the Lord's will. But I want to talk about 2 Kings chapter 4. Do you all know the story about the widow's oil? Does anyone know that story? Just give a thumbs up or something, or say, yeah, yes or no, if you've heard about the widow's oil. It's such an amazing story, because with the widow's oil, it gives a story about a lady who cried out to the prophet Elijah. She was so in debt that they literally were going to take her sons as slaves. They were literally going to sell her sons. That's just how much in debt she is. Now, I don't know about you. I've been in debt many times throughout my life, but it was never at that point. And I have 4 children, well, they're adults now, but 3 sons and 1 daughter. But anyway, so she was in that situation where they were going to take her boys. And what's amazing to me, I want you all to listen for just a second. The most amazing thing about this is what the prophet Elijah said to her, because she saw herself as having nothing. So just listen carefully to this. She saw herself as having absolutely nothing at all. So I want to read this just a little bit. And again, for those who are just joining, the subject of this is God can do so much more with less. Now, for those of you who already have my book Necessary, you already know what chapter I'm referring to. There's a chapter in my book called God Can Do More with Less. Very powerful chapter. And I want to touch on 2 things that I did mention in my book, but I want to just touch on it. So in 2 Kings chapter 4, and I'm just going to read through a little bit of this really quickly. It says, the wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elijah, your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord. But now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as slaves. Elijah replied to her, how can I help you? So just follow this for a second. This is not going to be complicated. This is a simple story. Elijah the prophet is saying to the lady, well, how can I help you? Because she said, I'm in all this debt. Listen to her response. He says, tell me, what do you have in your house? See, when I read the scriptures, maybe I'm just weird, but I like to pause a second and think about, well, why in the world is he asking her, what does she have in her house? Didn't she just tell the man she don't have nothing? Didn't she just say the creditors are going to come and take my kids because I'm in debt? And you're asking her, what do you have? Tell me, what do you have in your house? Listen to her response to this. Her response is, hopefully you guys can hear me. Is my mic on? Can you all hear me? Just say yes if you can hear me, because I'm still getting used to this live thing. Just someone says, yes, we can hear. So hopefully my mic is on. Can you all hear me? Someone just says yes really quickly. I see some waves going on, but I'm assuming that's a yes. Can someone say yes? Okay, good. Thank you for saying that, Faye. All right. So She's telling him the problem. He responds by saying, tell me, what do you have in your house? And listen to her response. Your servant has nothing there at all, she said, except a little oil. You ever felt that way? Like, I don't have much. How am I supposed to do something with what I've got? I don't have much. Do you not understand that I don't have much? I don't have much in my account, or I don't have much hope left, or I'm tired, or I've tried 50 times and this situation didn't work. She said, I don't have much. So this is what gets interesting. And listen how he just totally ignores what she says. So she says, your servant has nothing there at all except a little oil. And Elijah said, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't just ask for a few. Then go inside, shut the door behind you and your sons, pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side. So there seems to be a problem in that story, if you ask me. She just said, I don't have anything. They're about to come and basically take my kids because I ain't got nothing. I can't even pay my debt. He says, the prophet says to her, how can I help you? He says, tell me what you have in your house. And she sat there and said, your servant has nothing there at all. And then she said, except a little bit of oil. So how does it make sense that you're telling her to go get all these empty jars or empty jugs from the neighbors and bring it in the house and continue filling it up? You guys catch what's going on behind the scene with that. Because everything, this is why I love the Bible so much. Maybe it's just me and maybe I'm weird. But when I look at it, it's almost like it comes to life for me. Because I read that and I think, you got to be kidding me. So anyway, let's see what happens. So he says, go inside, shut the door behind you and your sons, pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side. She left him and afterwards shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her and she kept pouring. What? When all the jars were full, she said to her son, bring me another one. But he replied, there's not a jar left. Then the oil stopped flowing. Then she went, told the man of God, and he said, go sell the oil, pay your debts. You and your son can live on what's left. That is a powerful story, you all. Now, there are many people that believe that that symbolizes all types of things. However you want to read it, because I'm not a licensed minister. Let me be clear. I'm just a woman who loves God with every ounce of my body. And I do my best to study my scriptures and walk in alignment with him. And even the way I run my companies, I do my best to make sure that I'm following the patterns in the Bible. What this says to me, and this is why I want to encourage you, baby. I pray that this message is for somebody. What this says to me, no matter what your situation looks like, you may think you only got a little bit. You may be sitting there feeling in despair, feeling hopeless, feeling anxiety, feeling the pressures of life. We all have bills, right? And just feeling like, but I don't have much. I want you to look at how God is able to masterfully move and do things in your life with just a little bit. Now, if you're not convinced by that story, let me share with you one more. I want you all to turn to the book of Judges real quick. Now, for those of you who already have my book Necessary, I already talk about everything I'm talking about in the chapter called God Can Do More with Less. But I'm just giving you a little bit of the nuggets that I got from the Bible to put in my book. So in Judges chapter 6 and 7, which is one of my favorite stories, and I talked in my live a little bit about this yesterday. Remember the story of Gideon? Anyone know somebody says I need to start reading my Bible? Amen. We all do, baby. We all do. Someone else says God will provide. Amen. I hear you, Faye. I'm with you 100%. This is where I get my strength from. You all think when you see me on camera, whatever, well, I assume you may think that she's just always up, just always doing well, always filled with the Spirit. No. I go through. I run 2 companies. I have a lot going on. I have 4 kids, the majority of which are in college. I go through things in my marriage. I go through ups and downs in my finances. I still grieve losing my son, which we've lost. My son, whose bone marrow transplant wasn't successful. No, I go through. But I get my hope from this when I get into the Word. So anyway, not here to preach to anybody. I'm just here to encourage someone for a minute. In Judges 6 and 7, what blows me away about this story, and that's why I chose to mention him in my book, my book Necessary, the chapter called God Can Do More with Less. I really spent some time talking about this story because here's the deal. You got to look at how Gideon's response was. So imagine you are the least of the tribe. You feel like you have nothing. There's nothing really special going on with you. You ain't got no money. Ain't got really nothing really going on. And imagine an angel appearing to you. And this angel appeared to Gideon and said, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Now follow me on this. Just give me maybe 2-3 more minutes of your time. Somebody said, God has worked plenty of miracles throughout my life. Amen. Someone said, I was just praying and feeling low, asking God, why me? And your life just popped up. Well, baby, you may be the reason why God just told me to do this. because God knows I was heading over here to get me something to eat and get on back to the office. So you may be the reason I'm doing this. But follow this real quickly, baby. In Judges chapter 6 and 7, just think of this guy Gideon who was feeling very low, just like the person that just responded in here. And imagine an angel appearing and saying, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Listen to Gideon's response. You got to catch this, you guys. Just catch this. Gideon's response is, "But sir," Gideon replied, "if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our fathers told us when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now God has abandoned us and put us into the hand of Midian." You see Gideon's response? He's like, well, if God is with me, then where is he at? Anybody ever felt that? Like, okay, if he's with me, then where's the evidence? Like, how did I get in this situation? That's pretty much what Gideon's response was. So listen to this. The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" It's almost as if, now we just read the story in 2 Kings, I think it was chapter 4, when the widow said, "I don't have anything," right? And you notice how Elijah the prophet was like, "Go get some jars, go fill them." It's almost like he didn't even pay attention to what she said. Same thing happens here with Gideon. Gideon is like, well, if he was with us, then where's all his wonders? Why didn't he bring us up out of Egypt? Why did he abandon us? Why did he put us in the hands of the Midian? So in other words, why is my finances like this? Why did I lose my job? Why is my boss treating me this way? Why was I born into this family? Why are people, why are people backstabbing me and don't have my back? You get my point? So listen to this. So the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" Almost like, okay, I'm not even looking at your circumstances. I'm looking at what you're about to become. I'm looking at what I'm about to do in your life, because your circumstances don't even matter with what I'm about to do. So listen to the response after this, what Gideon said. And I'm in Judges 6, verse 15. Gideon said, "But Lord," Gideon said, "how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." So it's like God is telling you to do something. God is encouraging you that you're going to be successful in what you do. He's telling you, try one more time. I want you to go out here and do this and do that. And you're like, "But Lord, I'm the least in my family. Lord, I'm the one that ain't got no money, no car." Or maybe you do have all of those luxuries or whatever, but you still are unhappy in life. Whatever it is, there's an excuse that comes. So he said, "But Lord, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I'm the least in my family." And the Lord answered in verse 16, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites together." And Gideon basically went on to say, I'm not going to read all through this for time's sake, because I said I'm going to make this post short. But Gideon basically said, well, you got to give me a sign. And so they went through a whole series of giving him some signs and this and that. I'm going to fast forward past that part. And now we're going to jump to chapter 7. Oh, I just love this. I could just do this all day, every day, if God allowed me to. So in Judges chapter 7, this is what's really good. So Gideon had about, give or take, about 32 or 33,000 men. Now that may sound like a lot, but that was nothing compared to the army he was coming up against. That was like ants, like nothing. Check this out in verse 2. Even if you guys are not really into the Bible and all of that, it's okay. Just look at it as a story if you want. But I want you to grab some principles from this. And for those who are just joining, I'm talking about a subject of God can do more with less. I mentioned it in my book, Necessary. And it's, I forget which chapter it is, but it's called God Can Do More with Less. And I'm giving you the juice, the energy, the fire that I got to write that chapter. And I'm telling you where it came from. So anyway, in Judges chapter 7 and verse 2, the Lord said to Gideon, so Gideon had about 33,000 men. So he was like, okay, we're going to go fight. Have you ever been in a situation where you feel like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how God's going to work this out, but I think I got enough to make it happen. And if I do this, and this, then maybe I can do that. And has God ever come along and even taken that away or allowed that to shrink up some more? Listen to a biblical example of this. The Lord said to Gideon, you have too many men for me to deliver Midian into their hands. What? Do you see why I get excited about this? He only has about 33,000 men about to go into war. And the Lord shows up and said, no, you got too many. You have too many men for me to deliver you. I can't tell you how many times I've cried over just that verse. You got too much. You got too many men. Listen to what he said. In order that Israel may not boast against me, that by her own strength has saved her, announce now to the people, anyone who trembles with fear may turn back and leave Mount Gilead. So 22,000 men left while 10,000 remain. Please tell me somebody just picked up what I just read. Listen to what just happened. Gideon already is feeling really low. I'm the least in the tribe. I ain't got much. Lord, if you was with me, then where were you all these years I've been struggling? That's basically what he said in chapter 6. I'm in Judges 6 for those 6 and 7 for those who just joined. Oh my God, it's just like so good to me. Lord comes along, call him a mighty warrior. Then in chapter 7, which is where we're at, Gideon's getting ready to go into the war. And the Lord shows up and he's like, no, you got too many people to win this war. Are you serious? First of all, I only got 32 or 33,000 men. I think it was 32,000. We're going up against massive amounts of people. And you telling me that I have too many. Lord's like, yep. So Lord basically said, hey, if anybody's afraid, turn around and go home. And guess how many went home? 22,000 men turned around and left. So Gideon was left with 10,000. Now I'm going to say you the rest of the story because I realize not everybody can hang on alive for too long. But in verse 4, please just capture this. If you got to go, just listen to this. In verse 4, but the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many men. I already feel like I'm the least. I had 32 or 33,000 men. You already said if anybody's afraid, turn around and go home. There's only about 10,000 left. Now I know I really can't win this war. And you have the audacity to tell me, Lord, with this little bit I have left in my bank account, or this little bit I have left of faith or hope, or this little bit I have left in terms of thinking the situation can work out, you're trying to tell me that's still too much? Because that's what he told Gideon. He said in verse 4, but the Lord said to Gideon, there are still too many men. So he went through a process. He had them go down to the water. He had them sift some water. Read the story yourself. It's in Judges chapter 7. I'm trying to get to the end. But basically, he had them go down, sift some water. Some of them knelt down and got the water, and some of them like lapped the water up with their tongues. It was kind of weird, but some kind of way, at the end of the story, there was only about 300 men that actually got the water the way that the Lord wanted them to. And so the Lord said to Gideon in verse 7, now listen to this. If this don't make you pass out, I don't know what will. And I mean that in a good way. Please don't pass out. In verse 7, he says, the Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and I will save you and give the Midianites into your hand. All the other men go each to his own place. So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites to their tents, but kept the 300. Sometimes I just think the Lord has such an amazing sense of humor. You already feel like the least, like you don't have much. You only got about 32,000 men. God says, whoever is fearful, turn around, go home. So now you're left with 10,000. He said, you still got too many. He says, in order that Israel may not boast that by her own strength that saved her, announce anyone with fear can leave. So his concern was, and I should have said this in the beginning, his concern was, I don't want you thinking you got there by yourself. I don't want you thinking that you in your own strength got you to where I'm about to take you. Because the pride and the boasting is going to be too much. You're going to think you had something to do with it. I'm going to just marinate on that point for just a minute to see if somebody got that in their spirit. That's the whole point of Judges 6 and 7. Because if you really think about it, he did not have to take that man's army down from 32,000 men to 300 people. He could have just marched them right on into the war with the 32. But if you read Judges chapter 7, verse 2, he says, in order that Israel may not boast against me that her own strength has saved her. My God, he says, announce to the people, anyone trembling with fear may turn back. So do you see that principle? I want to start just teaching a few little biblical principles. I don't even know if I can use the word teaching because I'm not a licensed minister, but God knows everywhere the elders of my church, any place I can get biblical teaching, I'm at the front row and center learning. And I just love this. He says, I don't want you thinking you got there by your own strength. So right now you think I'm punishing you. You think something's off because what you have seems to be getting lower and lower and lower. And you think something's wrong with that. You thinking, poor me. How in the world am I going to get this career, this goal, or this dream, or whatever off the ground? How am I going to do this or that when I have so little? And then on top of that, you took even more away. Do you see the biblical principle in this? He said, in order that you won't boast, because where I'm about to take you, I'm taking you. You're going to get there. But I need for you to know it ain't by your strength. It's me. It's my power. I'm the one that brought you through. So you may say, well, Z, how did the story end? So Judges 6 and 7, here's how the story ended. I'm going to jump to the end so I can close out this live. The story ended with Gideon won the war. Now listen to this. If you don't remember anything else, just listen to this one statement I'm about to say and then you can go. Gideon did not need more. He only needed the Lord's strategy. Who caught that? Who caught that? Somebody said God literally just told me this before I got on. Someone said, thank you for coming to share this information. Did you catch that statement I just said? I pray somebody caught this because I know God has me going live for a reason. Gideon did not need more. He only needed the Lord's strategy. Do you realize with those 300 men, the Lord gave them a strategy, gave them a dream through the night? You can go ahead and read through the whole chapter. I'm not going to read through it all. Told them how they wanted them to get these jars. And I guess some kind of way they surrounded the army, only 300 men. In some kind of way they had jars and they I think that they put fire in them or something. Yeah, they had torches, they had jars, and they were smashing and hitting the jars, and it made such loud sounds. Even though it was only 300 of them, the army they were attacking thought it was like hundreds of thousands of them, and they in fear began to attack each other and run off, and Gideon ended up winning the war and taking everything from the camp, and it was just unreal. The whole point is that Gideon didn't need it more. He only needed the Lord's strategy. So imagine if he would have done that with his 32,000 men that he had initially. He probably would have thought that this was on his own strength. But when God took him into that war with only 300 men down from 32,000. So in other words, when God do what he's about to do in your life, baby, while you sitting there feeling down about yourself, looking at your results, looking at how little you have, when God gets done delivering you and doing what he's going to do in your life, you gonna know it's only the Lord that bought me. Why do you think I'm on this live? You think I'm doing this to sell a book? You think I'm doing this to get some notoriety or get some more followers? No. I'm doing this because I'm a living witness. I'm a living witness. I've been brought down so low at times in my life when I didn't have hardly a dime to my name. And if you do read my book Necessary, and you read the chapters called Hidden, and the chapters called, I think is one called Hidden, one called The Secret Place. I go into detail we're talking about. Sometimes it feels like God is punishing us when really he's just hiding us. And I know it don't feel like love. I know it feels like we're being punished. I know, I get it. If you do read Necessary, read the chapter called Hidden, because I really go deep into that when I was in some very dark moments in my life when I didn't have a dime to my name. And that's hard when you got a family to support, you got kids, you got bills left and right going on, and you loving God and doing everything you can to serve him, and you still going through that kind of mess. That's very hard. But oh my God, how God showed up so many times in my life and gave me a strategy. I'm in my closet praying at night, crying out to him, saying, God, where you at? Like, did I do something wrong? Why is life, how is my marriage in this situation? Why are my kids not acting like everybody else's, right? Why are they not acting right? Why are my finances like this? What is going on at work? Like, what is the deal? Anyone ever felt that? God got me down to such a low, and began to speak to me and began to tell me all this stuff I'm speaking to you in this closet. For those who don't know, I go in my closet at night and I pray not only pray, I sit for hours sometimes at a time just in God's presence. So I'm pouring into you and I'm going to do something. And oh my God, he began to give me strategies. Again, if you read my book Necessary or listen to any of my podcasts, Unlocking Greatness podcast with Zenja Glass, you'll already know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into all that now because I've done so many posts. There's a podcast called My Testimony. That's a good one to listen to. There's another one called, I think it's podcast number 28 or number 29. You can look that up. And that talks about look at it again. When you feel like you have nothing, look at your situation again and let God blow on it. But anyway, the whole point in me doing this is because I'm a living witness. God was able to do so much more with less. That's the whole point of this lesson. God can do so much more with less. I want to encourage you all, get into your scriptures. Don't think that God is punishing you simply because maybe you're going through a season of being hidden, or maybe you're going through a pruning season right now. That's another chapter in my book, Necessary. I think that's chapter For those who have the book, you can say what chapter it is. The pruning season is chapter 5. That's a very tough season. You know, when God is uprooting you and upplanting you and taking away everything that you thought you needed to depend on. But oh my God, when he repositions you and you begin to sprout and grow from the new territory he's placing you in. So I don't know what season you all may be going through. It could be a hidden season. It could be a pruning season. There's a number of other seasons I mentioned in this book. But what I do know is there are biblical principles we've got to be able to stand on, and this is one of them. So I just read to you, for those who are just joining, this entire live segment is called God Can Do More with Less. It's a chapter in my book, Necessary, but I wanted to give you the source of where I got the motivation to write that chapter. And I just talked about, was it 2 Kings chapter 4 about the widow's oil, because I see some new people just joining. And I also just talked about Judges 6 and 7. About how God allowed Gideon's army to come down from 32,000 to only 300 men. I used to laugh and think, God, why would you do that to the man? Like, why can't you just, why can't you just give us what we want and what, you know, when we want it? Like, do we have to go through that process? But then I realized, after reading through the story of Gideon over and over and over again, I've read it many times, I realized, wow, it's because you love us and you're protecting us. Because we naturally get prideful. We naturally feel like, you know, I got here on my own. Or we may give God a little bit of credit, but way in the back of our minds, we know that it was us that got us there. No. God allowed Gideon to go through that for a reason. So the point of this is, all we need is the Lord's strategy. Because with his strategy, baby, there's things he can do in your life you would never imagine. I never imagined in my life God could take me from a few $100s to having companies, employees. At one point I had up to 40-something employees. We're not that size now. But I never knew. And it's not about the money. I want to make that clear. Because sometimes when people give testimonies, it's always about the money. It's not about the money. It's about him pulling us through. And I'm like, God, you mean telling me this is what you want me to do with this little bit I got? That's how he works. And guess what? Guess what becomes of that when that happens that way? At least in my opinion. When it happens that way, this is what you get now. You get a woman on camera who can't help but give glory to God every single day of her life. Who every time I walk into my company, or every time I, you know, achieve a new goal, or every time I'm striving to do whatever, every time I look at my family, even though I lost my son, I still have to give him the glory, because I know it was him and his strategy that got me there. So imagine if I didn't go through what I went through, and I didn't like it, just to be really clear, didn't like it at all. But imagine if I didn't go through that and everything came so easy for me and everything I touched turned to gold, right? I still would have been grateful to God, but I'm being honest, I don't know if I'd be on camera talking to you right now. I don't know if this book Necessary would have been written, because everything I went through was necessary. You get my point? So God had to squeeze to get that oil out. Allow the oil to flow in your life, you guys. Let me close this out. I hope that this encouraged somebody. I'm just going to read a little bit of comments here and I'm going to end this live, but I pray someone's been encouraged. I don't know why God has me going live every day. I'm going to try my best to go live again tomorrow around noon or 12:15, no later than 12:30. But let me just see if there's a few comments. I hope you all have been blessed. Someone says, how was your book? It was a writing process. Yes, it took me years to write that book. And God, oh my God, there's so many things God took me through to write that. Necessary. Oh, okay. So it's on Amazon as a paperback. And it's on my website at Zenja Glass as an audiobook. Anyone else has something? I was encouraged. This was for me. Well, thank God, baby. I'm glad this was for somebody. Someone else says, I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged. Amen. I see you, Kelly, saying that you're encouraged. I'm just going to read a few more comments here. Someone says, Sentword says, I thank God for you. Someone is saying hi from Jamaica. Oh, Jamaica's in the house. Amen. So someone else is saying, thank you. It definitely did encourage me. Thank you. God is using you. Someone says, needed this love from India. Wow. India is in the house. I'm still trying to find my purpose and I'm in my 50s. Thank you so much. Always refreshing. I love these lives. I look forward to them. That's why it's called Necessary, feeling that something good will come out of it. That's right. And there's a story to that. God woke me up in the middle of the night years ago and told me I was going to write a book and it was going to be called Necessary. And my name wasn't even on the cover of the book. Notice my name's not there. So everybody advised me, Z, every author has their name on the cover of the book. I'm like, I got to go with the vision God gave me. There's nothing even on the back. God just said that that's all he wanted and there's necessary. So I had to walk in obedience, even though it goes against industry standards. And I'm glad I did. So he definitely did a work in me through that book. Hello from Zimbabwe. Oh my gosh, are you serious? London is in the house. This is absolutely amazing that there are people all over the world that are able to come in. Thank you from South Africa. Thank you from the UK. I'm getting the audiobook. Thank you so much. Many people have asked how to get the audiobook. My audiobook is not on Amazon. It's sold exclusively on my website at zenjaglass.com. I did that for all kind of reasons. I refuse to sell my voice. I won't get into that, but when you send your audiobook in to Amazon, but anyway, I won't get into all of that. Let me just say, my audiobook is exclusively on my website, but the paperback is worldwide on Amazon. So even if you go to any bookstore all over the world, you should be able to get it. Someone is from Australia, from Ghana, from Canada. You have to be kidding me. It's amazing how this platform works. Anyway, I want you all to be encouraged. The subject of this was God can do more with less. And for those who are just joining, once again, just as a quick recap, we went over 2 Kings, I think it was chapter 4, the story of the widow, because she felt she had nothing at all. She felt, I've got nothing. They're coming to take my sons because I owe creditors and I have absolutely nothing. And the prophet Elijah just said to her, what do you have in your house? So I want you to reconsider. I don't want you to just watch this live and just get motivated and just go about your day. No. I'm not that kind of person that goes online to do stuff like that. I need you to get something from this that's going to change the rest of your day. So I want you to go back and look around and think, what do I have in my hands? What is it that God's already given me? And if you go to YouTube, my podcast is called Unlocking Greatness with Zenja Glass. I think it's podcast episode 28 or 29. I go into detail about the story of the widow. And I think it's called Look Again. I think that's what I called it. And the whole point is I want you guys to look again at your situation before you give up or throw in the towel or sit there for the rest of the day feeling down or discouraged. Look at it again. Look at it again and see what do you have. Because she thought she only had a little bit of oil, and the prophet Elijah saw so much more. Look at Gideon in Judges chapter 6 and 7. When that angel came to him and called him a mighty warrior. Why did she call him a mighty warrior? He was like, what mighty warrior? I'm the least in my clan. If I'm a mighty warrior, then why have we been going through all of this mess all these years? Where you been? But notice how God just saw who he was becoming. That's some good stuff, you guys, for whoever's picking this up. That's some good stuff. And look what happened, how God lowered his army down from 32,000 to only 300. So that when he got to where God was going to take him, he wouldn't be able to boast and say he got there himself. So I pray that this encourages you. God can do so much more with less. He can do so much more with less in your life. Please listen to me. He can do so much more. What you need to do is draw closer to him. Say, God, how do I serve you? What is it you want? What is your strategy? What is it you're trying to do? And I'm telling you all, this is not just fluff. I'm not on here to sell a book. I'm not on here because I need more followers. That is not why I'm here. I'm here because I'm a living witness. And I owe it to God to give my testimony. I was brought down to nothing. Nothing. And all I could do is sit in my closet, sometimes too weak to pray. Didn't even want to pray half the time because I felt like he wasn't going to answer it anyway. Spending hours and hours, days turns into weeks, turns into months, just sitting in his presence. And he began to whisper to me. He began to give me his strategy. He began to tell me what to do with, I think I had $200-300 to my name. He began to tell me what to do. And he walked me through some journeys. And if you do have my book Necessary, you'll know what some of those journeys are because I talk about it. Let God begin to speak to you and guide you, baby. He can do so much more with less, okay? I love you, I love you, I love you. And if there's anyone on this live that's thinking about giving up, don't you dare give the enemy that kind of a victory. Don't you dare. Watch the lives I did yesterday and the day before. I read a little bit from chapter 1. Chapter 1 is called A Letter to the Enemy. Chapter 1 is a letter to the enemy. And it's a very strong letter to the enemy about you almost had me. You almost made me believe your lies. But thank God Almighty, I can see your strings now. I can see that you are limited. So make sure you read chapter 1 if you're in that situation where you feel like, man, what's the point in going on? I want you to never, ever give in to that lie. Anyway, I love you all. I really got to go. I got to get my butt to work. I love you. Hopefully I'll be going live again tomorrow around the same time. But I love you guys.